Let's talk about Armageddon Time, a deeply personal coming of age
Tell
story
me
about
this.
a young Jewish boy growing up in Queens in 1980, his family, his relationships with his young black friend Johnny, and the generational pursuit of the American dream. This comes from director James Gray and has been tipped as a potential Oscar contender. Art had to skip town before we got to see it, but Austin, you got to catch it. So tell me,
Yes.
what did you make of Armageddon Time?
I have an interesting relationship with James Gray. It feels like he's a director. Every time I go into his movie, I'm like, "Oh, this is the one." And it's gonna be and I always walk out like, "Yeah, that was really good." I think I like Ad Astra more than a lot of people.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
big
Mhm.
fan. I it's just it was a
There's
theatrical
something about
experience,
that
yes,
one.
but then I rewatched it on a smaller screen, and I'm like, "Man, this is still good." Like, it's still a good movie. So I kind of had that same expectation for this. I feel like I would learn my lesson, but I thought Armageddon Time. Hey, look at the cast. You got Hopkins. You got these, but then you figure out that the movie is it's about this young boy, and that's not something that I really saw coming because I didn't really pay attention to a lot of the marketing for this film, which was kind
Mhm.
of nice. It was kind of refreshing.
Right.
So you get this what felt like a coming of age story, but then he was asked in the Q&A afterwards, and he basically shot that down. He said, "This is not a coming of age story. This is my own, this is what happened to me. Essentially, this is a story from the heart, but it's really focusing on this relationship between these two young characters and kind of the ins and outs and everything that happens, what's going down with the family, but also what's going down from the outside looking in, this friendship that he has that's abnormal. It feels like it's very abnormal at this time, but also
Mhm.
the way that others are looking at it. And it it goes at its own pace, and it tells this story maybe a bit, and I hate to say it, a bit slower
Mhm.
than it should have. It really focuses in on the dialogue. You get a
Mm.
lot of moments where they're sitting at the dinner table, and Anthony Hopkins has a couple of monologues in there, and he's incredible. I feel like he could do a performance like this in his sleep, but that's how good he is. You know, um, I wasn't in love with the experience up until a moment involving Hopkins' character to where it really brought a lot of emotion out of me. I mean, a lot of emotion. Zach, you probably know the one I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, of course.
That that was that was really what kind of got me on board. And I still wasn't really, over the moon about the film as a whole, but I got what it was going for at the end, and I saw the impact that it had when the credits came on screen. So this is one I had to I progressively liked it more and more as it went. And by the time the credits
Mhm.
came, I said, yeah, that was actually a good film. Was it James Gray Oscar contender? I don't think so,
Yeah.
but amazing performances, and the young actors did a great job.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a really interesting story, but James Gray is definitely a filmmaker who is not somebody who is like going to give you like a edge of your seat type of film, right? He
For sure.
lets scenes kind of play out for a long while. There's a patience not just with the scenes, but with the progression of the story. It takes a little while to really reveal what it's trying to do.
Yes.
And it is interesting. We got to see the Q&A with the director and with a lot of the cast, so maybe that does ultimately end up informing your opinion a little bit.
Mhm.
But I thought some of the things he had to say were also very interesting in talking about how his story, or I guess the story of the child at the center of this movie, which is based heavily on his own upbringing, is one of uh losing faith in the system, right? Because
Mhm.
he starts in a public school, and you see like the environment of New York at the time, and it's very much about sort of this attitude of ascending the ladder socially, and getting
Yes.
to a new level of class. And it's very integral to the experience, I think, of being um a lot of immigrants have this experience. A lot of Jewish people in this country have this experience. But I don't know. I thought the way that the film tried to represent that shifting equity was really fascinating. Although ultimately, the thing that I found interesting is that, like, in reading basically every Black critic that I've read in response to this movie has been really kind of frustrated by the choices that the film takes, which I'm like has me conflicted because I really responded to the movie. I thought it was a lovely depiction of realizing your place in the world, right? Like I think a lot of films are about this sort of like coming of age of experience, and this is sort of like a coming of age of like social identity. And to me, that was really unique and special and moving. But I also have to contend with the fact that this, like, it really does put this the young Black boy at the center of this film in some spots that have rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. So I don't know. Like you, I'm kind of like mixed in my feelings of it. Although, like, I have a lot, like, it did deeply move me. So I'm not like throwing that out or whatever. But like, I wanna consider it a little bit more. Just because it's, I don't know. People are reacting differently in different ways to it, but I did think there's something really, really special here. And James Gray is a very intelligent filmmaker, so I don't know. I guess I guess it just worked for me, even though it's one that might not hit you right out of the theater. I think as you marinate on some of the concepts, it's very fascinating.
Yes, I agree. And it was funny because just going out of the theater and standing in a circle and talking to people, I was getting drastically different reactions. I was getting some people like, oh boy, I can't believe they made that decision. And then someone else saying, well, that decision really worked for me, and I feel like that's kind of been the talk on Twitter and the talk with some of the people that I've seen. And I can understand, like, looking at it from that perspective, I can completely understand where they're coming from. But like you, Zach, I'm watching this film and I'm feeling what he's trying to convey. And I think the most important thing about this movie is that it feels personal.
Yes,
It does
deeply
feel
personal.
like the director. It feels like the director went through this experience, and you're seeing it through his eyes. And there's a moment, and I won't say what context, where Hopkins' character is sitting on a bed and just a little kind of a monologue going on,
Yes.
and that's a moment that really brings everything in that movie to a head and kind of delivers on that message of what Gray's going for. So I think that's what really did it for me. Again, I do have my nitpicks and my flaws, and there was someone in our row, Zach, while we were watching the movie that was dead asleep. I mean, dead asleep watching this film.
Yeah. There is
snoring.
A guy who seemingly comes to the New York Film Festival press screenings exclusively to nap. We're learning.
He got like a 2-hour block to sleep. He doesn't have to rent a hotel downtown.
It's nice and climate controlled.
Yeah, I didn't get it. I maybe it was the movie, maybe it was just that's just his time to sleep. But
yeah,
but I could see how that pacing doesn't work for everyone. But this is what Gray does. It felt like the rest of his filmography, so that didn't bother me maybe as much. But yeah, I really like the experience, and I think I'm with you, Zach. I'm more on the positive side of things than negative.
One question for you, because I've only seen the trailer, and the trailer was the part that got me like, this looks kind of cheesy. I don't know how it is. What a lot of people are reacting to that you said you've seen like a shift in, is it perspective decisions? Like, is it because they don't like the way they approached a plot point in the movie, or is it more like people are just upset because they don't want to see something reenacted on screen? If that makes any sense.
I think there is a little bit of both, if I'm being perfectly honest. Like,
okay.
I think some people don't want to see certain elements depicted, at least in the way that they were depicted. But there are also some people who just have like aesthetic issues and like more creative issues with the film. I've seen some people even saying like the lighting isn't right on the Black characters, which is not something that I picked up. But I don't know. Yeah, I just recommend reading some people's perspectives on it. But for me, I thought it was extremely moving, and in a way that I don't normally see. Like the type of social consciousness they're trying to display in the film is rare to see depicted in this type of movie. So I think there's I think it's a little more than just a coming of age film,
Okay. Oh, and it comes out in November, if I'm not mistaken. It should have a pretty wide release right at the beginning, because I think we're getting it in Chicago November 4th.
Yeah. It'll be going fairly wide, fairly quick, and then by mid-November, I think this one's going to be on Amazon, so should be pretty accessible relatively soon.
Sounds good.
Austin, one last quick question. The word is that Anne Hathaway and Jeremy Strong are going to be run in, I think, the supporting categories for this film.
Oh.
How do you like their chances at potential Oscar nominations?
Um, it's difficult. You know, I think Strong was
Mm.
doing something a lot different than what I expected.
Yeah.
It's unlike anything I've seen Strong do. So that's definitely a testament. We've seen this version of Hathaway before, but she does a really wonderful job. There are a couple of
Mhm.
moments between she and her son where the emotion is there, and that I watched the scene, I'm like, oh, that's her Oscar moment.
Right.
I don't know if the performance is quite there, but I could definitely see both performances in the conversation. I want Strong to get nominated regardless, but that's just because I love Succession, so I don't care what the movie is, you know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I would really love to see Jeremy Strong get nominated for this movie. I don't know. It spoke to something inside my like Jewish core. But I liked him and Anne Hathaway both a lot. But I also can't. Something about it makes me doubt that they'll ultimately get across the finish line. But I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see.
Stacked year, man.
Very stacked year.
Yeah, it is.